Hello and welcome to the Century Hour with me, David Demakin. I am at Sir John Colfox Academy. This week for Autism Awareness Week, I am joined by Zoe and Nick in the inclusion room. I will go into details about what we are doing here first. They are laughing in the background, which is what you can probably hear.
Zoe is laughing.
Colfox this week for Autism Awareness Week, I am doing a podcast trying to give parents and educators a bit of understanding about what goes on in school. So we're going to be speaking with the SENCO, Brian, about how to get a EHCP and how we support children in school. We're also going to be speaking to the SEN department about what they offer in school. That I am joined by the inclusion staff first, which you can hear. It is always a laugh with the inclusion staff. So I will just start off with my questions that I got for you. So Zoe and Nick, what is the inclusion room at Colfox and what kind of atmosphere you're both trying to create for the students in this room? People can almost tell what it's like just by the way you are after a minute of this podcast.
Right.
Over to you, Zoe.
Well,
We try to be very welcoming, don't we, Zoe?
we do.
We do. What word beginning with N would you use for inclusion centre?
I'd say nurturing. We're very nurturing.
Very nurturing. And would you say, what am I interviewing you? Would you say it was a safe place that we created? A safe place, yes, thank you.
Yes.
So it's a very safe, nurturing, welcoming, calm.
Calm.
Yeah.
So do you see a lot of the same students every day, or do you see different students come up, or does it grow as the year goes on? So like with year 7s, they might not necessarily know what the room is, but then does word of mouth almost get round that this is a safe place and there's things that they can do up here at break, lunch, or even in between lessons?
The room evolves through the year. So we start off with the transition year 7s coming up. And then as we go through the year, we tend to end with sort of mostly year 11s with their exam anxiety and stress and not being able to cope with a lot of the revisions. So they spend a lot of time with us up here sort of towards the end of the year. So yeah, we see a mixture of everybody all through the year, but you can see a pattern that runs through.
That sort of links to my second question, which is, can you explain some of the work that you both do daily? Because as I work in SEN, I see you guys quite sparingly in the day, either in the corridor or you're in and out of this room doing lots of different jobs, and you're sort of like unsung heroes in school because you do so much work.
Oh, thank you.
All day, every day. And I think that sometimes it can go under the radar because you two go above and beyond almost every day.
Thank you.
So I just try and explain some of the work that you do daily, because even I don't know, because I just see you off and about.
I don't think we really know.
We have no idea. It's a real mix, actually, and what we've worked hard is to try and make sure that the whole school has access to inclusion, rather than just our regulars, which goes back to your question before. There's some young people we see a number of times a day, and we've really worked hard to have an open door policy for those young people.
We've also worked hard at shaking off the stigma of it being a place for naughty people, because for quite a while the students with just the behavioural issues were being sent to inclusion, so it had quite a reputation for being a place for naughty students, and it's taken us quite a long time with students and with staff, haven't it, to shake off that and it be an inclusive environment.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that helped that was that we started having drop-in for the whole school at breaks and lunch times. And so, and again, word does spread, word of mouth spreads through our young people. So we may see some students just once that we don't work with regularly. A lot of our work is one-to-one work, depending on the skill sets that we have within the inclusion centre.
Although we have tailored small group work as well, so we might have a group of, for example, one year we had a group of year 9 girls with very low self-esteem, so we put them all together and we ran a self-esteem group based on the Dove programme of body image and body image in the media, that sort of thing, and that was really successful. It's just about knowing our kids really, and knowing whether we can put them together, whether they need that sort of one-to-one.
And I suppose it's just being flexible with their needs as
absolutely.
well. So,
Yeah.
for example, if a student really struggles with one particular lesson, you two can use your magic, shall I say, to sort of tempt them in, and then know that you're still around and give them sort of strategies for just a specific hour if that's their focus on that day.
Yeah, and we do a lot of keeping in mind work, so our young people feel safe when they're not working with us and they're within the mainstream part of the school,
and that there is somebody who is thinking about them, and somebody who they are important to, even if it's just I remembered it's, you know, you're going to play football this weekend, aren't you? Just anything that's just going to make them think, oh, well, you know, I'm important to that person.
Yeah. I mean, each of our young people we work with regularly have 6 weeks of intervention, and they have a support plan for that, which we then monitor and we score at the end of that, and the young people score it. But within that support plan, there is real flexibility, isn't there?
And that's almost the kind of, that's like the jam on the toast, really. Yeah. I think what we're best at is the relationships that we have with our students, whether they're coming up here to get a glass of water every morning or whether they're coming up for quite intensive work. I think we've established enough of a reputation in the school that we are people that can be trusted and people that are proactive and that will fight their corner.
Yeah, and I see that with some of the most, I don't really like the word vulnerable, but I'll use it in this case, as some of the most vulnerable students, they seem to have a really close-knit relationship with you both, and it's such a welcoming room. And what people can't see while we're speaking is that the room is huge. It's a really nice room with lots of natural light. You know, you've got a few sofas in here, and you've got the room seems to be broken up into different areas as well. So you've got like a little kitchen area. You've got little side rooms where you can do some little one-to-one work. If someone's really quite distressed, they don't need to be out in a public place, and it's just a really nice room, and I can see why the students would like coming up here. My next question, do students use the inclusion room over break and lunchtime? I'm going to add to this question, and do you see students in between lessons as well during transition time? Because I've noticed that there's a few of the same students that come up just to check in and see if you're still around.
It's yes to both of those, isn't it? We keep it open at break and lunchtime for drop-in for any student, but primarily really as a safe place for our young people where they feel nurtured and supported, to offload some of the things that have happened with them so that we can interact with them.
And they see it as their space. It's almost like a sixth form common room, somewhere where they can just relax just for that lunchtime. They don't have to worry about what's going on outside the room. If they want to come and make themselves a hot drink, they can make themselves a hot drink. If they want to eat their lunch up here, they can do that. It's just somewhere where, you know, they might have had a rubbish morning, they might have been in trouble all morning or been upset all morning, but, you know, for that small amount of time, they know that they're going to have a positive time in here.
And they can just unload, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely, and kind of reset, so that the issues sometimes that we once had was, you know, if something happened in one period, then our young people would be cool. It would just escalate through the day. So they need opportunities to reset, and between lessons, because transition is a difficult time for a lot of our young people, isn't it?
And sometimes just to hear something
just having
positive.
a nod is sometimes key, isn't it?
I see changes each week within inclusion, and I see you try to meet the needs of a variety of different students. One of those that I'm interested in, I've never spoken to you about actually, is the bag storage area. So one day there wasn't one there, the next day there was. I can kind of see what you're doing with that, but I think that it's such a clever idea that at Colfox everyone has a locker, but some of the pupils can't access those lockers for whatever reason. What was the reason that you come up with a bag storage area?
So there was two reasons, I think. I mean, you may contradict me, I don't know. But there's, first of all, some of our young people find it hard to use their locker, you know, for whatever reason. So it may be too crowded around the locker. You know, they may feel uncomfortable using it for whatever reason there is for that. So it was giving them an alternative. It also enables them to again, use what they feel is their space more. So actually, they don't need to always say, I've come because I need you to talk to me, because they're not going to. It's a really good excuse for them to be able to come up, nip in to get something. And usually we can tell when there's a change in the pattern of behaviour. What's really good is at the end of the day, when they collect their bags, we can almost debrief the situation. And the school, so we're just actually checking that our students are okay.
Well, what I do want to add is that this is during the middle of a school day, and pupils will come in and out. So it's absolutely fine. One of my other episodes when I interviewed a person called Nick, his children actually walked in and said, "Daddy, I need a wee" at one point. It was fine, so it doesn't matter.
One of us might do that in a minute. In fact, one of us.
So yeah, the bag storage areas I just thought was such a really smart, under the radar way of just allowing students to come in, because like you said, they don't have to come in and say I need help. They just go and get something from a bag, and you can just tell by mannerisms or body language.
Absolutely.
That, actually I can.
It just breaks every barrier down.
Yeah.
And also, some of our students, their possessions are so important to them, and it just stops that conflict in the corridor. Why have you got your bag? Why aren't you using your locker? They're able to. They know that their bags are okay in here. They're not going to go walk about. If they choose not to put it in there, but they want us to keep it under our table, we'll do that for them. Yeah. It's just that extra little bit of security for them to know that they are important to us, and so their things are important to us as well. So,
and I suppose it shows that there is flexibility as well in the system, that you guys are being flexible with them, and in turn, I suppose the hope is that they'd mirror that back to you guys as well. So when they need to be doing something which they might not necessarily want to do, I'm thinking of one student in particular that has an issue with science, and that you guys, every time I'm up here and it's a science lesson comes over, I can see you prepping him and building him up.
That's right, through the morning, and he has double science one afternoon, and you know that's going to be starting to talk about science at 8:30. You might have a chance.
I've got here that students can access one-to-one catch-up meetings with yourselves. I think you've kind of covered this, but with other professionals at points during the week, is this a time for students to speak with members of staff they trust and unloading issues? And if a student has problems during the week, they can come up and see you at any time.
Not really at any time. I mean, certainly in between lessons they can. And what normally with our young people that we work with regularly, they will come and see us at the start of the day or between lessons, give us a nod, or often actually we will offer it because we can sense that there's something, and again taking that decision away from them, and say outside of the one-to-one time, that we'll make time through the day at a certain point.
And I think when we first started inclusion together, our one-to-one work was our core work, but it's just an element of what we do now, isn't it? It's that opportunity to have that intense work with the student face to face, but actually I think we get more from them once we've done the build-up work.
Absolutely,
so the filling in bits, the popping in, the dropping in, that the one-to-one is you kind of almost want to have that building up to the one-to-one
towards the end,
really, because we tend to start with the one-to-one, and by the time you get to the end of the 6 sessions, you've in theory, and most of the time you've built that relationship, but it's what comes afterwards that I think is the more positive aspect of the one-to-one work, because you seem to spend that 6 weeks getting to know the student, building up that trust, and actually after that they know that you're someone they can trust, they know that this is a safe place, so we tend to see them
after
that one-to-one. So it's like a kind of prerequisite to the rest of the work that we do.
So it's all about building that positive relationship then with that student, almost not kind of like disarming them and saying that this is sort of a separate entity, although it's a part of Colfox, it's a separate entity. If you need to come here and air whatever you need to air, we are going to listen, and we are going to try and put something into place for you, be it...
That's right, or advise.
But
sometimes just hear as well is important.
Yeah, and they know, if they come in and they're upset or they're angry or they're, we get the brunt of that anger, they know that we're not holding on to that.
And that we recognise why it happened.
Absolutely, and that, it doesn't matter what they throw at us, we're still here. We're still here, and we will constantly be here. and it's tough. It's really tough. It's exhausting, and
it's a long day.
it is a really long day. But that consistency pays off so much.
Yeah.
So much.
If you're going to build trust up, you have to really throw yourself into it entirely. 100%. That you're prepared to support the young people at any cost. And also that you're always going to be able to make time for them. Even if it is just a few minutes here or a couple of minutes there. And that you will always be there, and that the next time they see you, whatever's happened, as you were saying, Zoe, it's back to the back to the default.
And I think them
a positive
seeing us
relationship.
in the outside of the room, seeing us talking to their teachers, talking to their head of year, talking to their peers on their behalf, gives them strength and gives them
there's someone in my corner.
Absolutely, no matter
security.
what.
Do you find it difficult to fit everybody in? Because I suppose the difference with my role in SEM, which I'll go into later on after this interview, is that I have a very small amount of students that I see daily, whereas up here at a break or lunchtime, there could be 20, 30 students all in here. Like, some might be having breakfast because they've got to have their breakfast, some might have hot chocolate, computers, some will want to have a chat with you. I can imagine that you could be quite stretched at times. You find it difficult to give that
and we're
time.
really mindful of that, aren't we?
I mean, we aren't together very often, but we've both been known to leave a note or to phone or an email and say, I was meant to see such and such today, and I feel really bad that I haven't seen them. Could you just touch base with them and make sure that they're okay? And so we'll always say, Mr. Preston left me a note to say he was really sorry he didn't get to see you yesterday, but he asked me to check in. And so even that, just that kind of nod to, we haven't forgotten you. You are still important to us.
And a proper team effort then that combined. I mean, it's only a team of 2, is it, or a team of 3?
We have Julie. She's here for 5 hours, and she's really good, and she works with some of our young people. But really, the core work is the 2 of us that we will. It's either one or the other of us that will be on duty, as if it were at any time.
I mean, we love working together, but we find the time when we are here together, we're just so more proactive, and we just seem to get so much more done because, we are able to adjust what we're doing. So if one person's in a sort of deep conversation or in the middle of a session with someone else, and the other one knows that they're on kind of triage duty, so we're able to sort of switch and do what we need to do. It just works better, doesn't it? It just works.
Definitely.
Works better to have someone else in the room.
Because I think the thing that I want to stress is, even though I'm doing this for Autism Awareness Week, the inclusion room is for all students in the school. And
absolutely.
And I think that there's, you can correct me if I'm wrong, like 1,000 students or something massive in this school that can all access this room if they want to. And even though, I'm going to be stressing about Autism Awareness Week and how important it is, I think that it's just amazing, because this is my 4th school. I mean, I'm only 28, I've worked in 4 schools, and I've never seen an inclusion room work as productively for all before. In other schools I've been in, it's more, these are the students that use it, these are the ones that need it at this time, and that's it. Whereas I can come up here through period 1 all the way through to period 5, and there might be the same students in here, but there'll always be different ones as well.
Absolutely.
And I think everyone accesses it for a different reason. And just to know that there's a place like this here just takes a bit of the edge of maybe some anxiety off for the day. And then you guys can deal with what might happen during the rest of the day.
Our methods and our processes and things are autistic friendly anyway, because we are very routine based. We are, if we've got students who are up here working sort of religiously through the week at the same lesson, or if they're up here for reintegration or for a long period of time, they do have tasks that they follow. We use the 5-point scale, which is accessible for anybody. But if there is somebody who has specific needs, we can cater to them too. We're geared up for anyone and everyone.
Yeah. So my last question is, the work that you do, are the pupils referred to by SLT, class teacher, or do the pupils themselves approach you, or is it a little bit of everything?
It's a mixture of everything. I mean, our core sort of one-to-one sessions and so on, they would be from either heads of school or senior leaders, or through my plans from SEN.
Yeah.
Sometimes that we would be part of a wider provision there. And also increasingly young people coming in and sort of for one-off sessions or a couple of meetings.
We've even had sixth formers self-refer.
Yeah.
So past students that have had our support through sort of year 10, year 11, they're coming back to us in the sixth form and saying, look, I really need your help. And they are timetabling themselves to come in and spend time in here and, you know, have a cup of tea with us, have a catch up, ask our advice, or just sit and catch up on work, because they know that they can get on in here and do what they need to do.
I suppose that speaks louder than words, that it shows the positive impact that you're having, that even when they're in sixth form, which is almost, I mean, it's at the completely other end of the school, it's more treated like they're adults, really, isn't it? That they still feel like, get almost drawn back and think,
that's
actually,
right, and that they won't be judged for that. Actually, everyone
Yeah.
has needs at some time that they need fulfilled, and that's just how it is.
And even if they're not coming in to do work, they still want to drop in, and they still want to come and see us.
They're passing.
And we,
and former students who have left will come in.
Yeah, and they work with some of our younger students, just support them with their work or give them some advice. And no, it's lovely. I mean, we're in our second or third year in this room.
Second year.
So we're constantly changing. But I'd like to think that in years to come that, you know, our students that we've seen from year 7 all the way through will come back and hopefully have nice memories of it. Nice things to say.
Well, I'm done. I've kept you for longer than I wanted to, because you're so busy, and I really appreciate you speaking about this, because a lot of the people that get in contact with me through either Twitter or my email or on YouTube are all parents,
right?
And it's all parents that are either struggling, not knowing sort of what school provisions, what are offered, and it's can be a lonely place if you don't have that support, which is why when I wanted to show the great things that Colfox does, that you were on the top of my list, because since I've been here 18 months, it's just such a welcoming space, and I can totally get why the children use it as much as they do.
So that's nice to hear, isn't it, Zoe?
It's very nice, Nick. Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm going to finish off and let you get back to work. And just
No!
and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm sat here with Brian, who's a SENCO at school, and I'm just going to explain how I work closely with Brian. I work in the SEN department, and Brian is essentially my big boss, two up the chain, and I have lots of conversations with Brian about the particular students that I work with and how to meet their needs, and it's a real tight-knit team, so we all bounce off ideas off of each other, and we always get there in the end, supporting each individual child. SEN works slightly differently to how inclusion works. SEN is more on a education basis rather than the nurturing environment upstairs. I will say that SEN is very nurturing as well, but there's sort of two different islands, but we have the same goal and looking for the same outcome in school, I suppose. So hello, Brian.
Hello, David.
So I'm going to go through these questions. I know you're very busy, so I'll try and be as quick as I can. So question 1 is, within your role as SENCO, have you seen the numbers increase coming into the school of pupils on the autistic spectrum? And if so, why do you think this is?
I think that's a really interesting question, because I would say definitely there's an increase in the number of students who have a diagnosis of autism. But I think we have always taken students who would have had the characteristics but not a diagnosis. And I think there are probably 2 main reasons why there's an increase in the number of students with a diagnosis. And that's firstly a greater awareness in society and in the medical profession about autism, and the focus on early identification. So students are being identified much sooner, and therefore coming to our school, the secondary school, already having a diagnosis. I think in the past, students would have been referred for a diagnosis once they got to secondary school, possibly once they were in year 9 or year 10, when it became more evident that they had those needs.
So are you seeing more children with a diagnosis from primary schools then?
That's exactly right.
And with that, because we are an academy and we have lots of feeder primary schools, are we able to have conversations with those schools early if they know that particular student's coming here, then we can prepare maybe 6-7 months in advance? Yes,
and certainly it might even be before that. We interact with the primary schools way down from when students are in year 5, if there are very complex needs, and start doing our planning as early as year 5. And if they have an EHCP, we might be attending the annual review meetings in year 5 and year 6, so that we get a sort of a good transition programme sorted for the students.
Okay. When a new student is joining the school, so either as a year 7 student or from a different provision who has an EHCP, what steps are put in place to make sure that this school is the right school for them? And how do we come up with what extra support may be needed? Are there conversations with the primary school parents, county?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes on if the students are within our catchment area. So as I said before, if a student has an EHCP, we might be invited along to the year 5 annual review. We'll certainly be invited along to the year 6 annual review to sort of plan the transition very, very carefully. That will involve meetings with parents, so we get to know the parents, they get to know us. And that's very, very important because we want parents to feel comfortable talking to new people who are going to be looking after their child. We have many conversations with the primary teachers and the SENCOs in the primary schools, so we become very aware of the students' needs. We also want the student to feel comfortable with us, and so we offer what we refer to as enhanced transition, and students might come up either on their own or in small groups, 3 or 4 or possibly more times in the spring and summer terms of year 6, so that they become familiar with the SEN department and what we do, and they have a growing familiarity with our school. If they are a member of our feeder schools, they will also probably come up in year 5 as well, and so they will understand our school, they will know our school, and we spend a little bit of time working with them so that they understand where lessons are, how to get from one lesson to the next, and really answer any of their concerns. We use this time also to plan very carefully what provision they might need. And so there might be additional learning needs, and we'll be looking at whether they need additional literacy support, numeracy support, whether we need to focus on providing support within the classroom, whether we need to do additional intervention with the students. So we use that time to plan our interventions so that when they start in September, everything's up and running for them.
So it isn't just September the 1st or whatever, the student just comes to the school for the first time and that's it. There's a long process of deliberation and putting things in place ready for September rather than just almost seeing how it goes. I mean, I'm sure there is a flexibility that goes on here, because I can speak for that we do judge how things are going and can change quite quickly, but with regards of them coming from one of the primary schools, things are already put in place before they come here.
Absolutely, but you are quite right to mention the fact that sometimes we plan for things and they just don't work, and therefore we do have to be adaptable and to review our plans and modify them as necessary.
So that's my next question actually. How flexible is the school when trying to meet the needs of those on the autistic spectrum, but actually just in general, I suppose? It may be Autism Awareness Week, but SEN works with a wide range of students, not just autistic.
That's exactly right. And there are lots of strategies that we'll think about, and then we'll pull together the package that's appropriate for the student. So for example, there are some students in our school who have what we refer to as a flexible timetable, and those students might not come into our school for the whole of the school day every day. They might have other provision as well. So for example, we have students who go to the forest school, who go to our local learning centre, who go down to the youth club and do some music work. So where appropriate, we try to make sure that we have as flexible a timetable as possible. For some students, they will be offered what we refer to as an exit card. So if, for example, a member of staff, teaching staff, were to be absent, we have cover teachers who take those lessons, and that unexpected change might be very difficult for some students to manage. And we provide them with an exit card so they can just come up to SEN or to inclusion, so that they don't have the anxiety of being with someone that they don't know very well. We offer other strategies such as the incredible 5-point scale to help students identify things that are causing their anxiety, what level they're at, and what strategies they might use to help reduce their anxiety. We also do sensory things as well. So some students have sensory exercises that they might do outside the classroom. Some students might carry around a heavy bag, for example, and we give them permission to do that, and they have a little card giving them permission. So there's just a few things of the many interventions that we might offer students.
The next question is, does school actively seek out professional advice if needed, and how much input do the parents get on their child's education flexibility? Before I mention that, though, I'm going to really promote the school, because this is actually my 4th school that I've worked in, and I've never been in a mainstream school where the behaviour policy can be as flexible as it is. I mean, obviously has to be certain rules as a mainstream school, and everyone has to coexist in the same community, but at the same time I think that you can stop me if I'm wrong, but like SEN students, and particularly students that we know have additional needs, we can be flexible and give and take so that they can work with their safe adult or with adults that they trust and try and work on that behaviour. And then if that behaviour does come up again, then maybe look at a different approach or consequence.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. We want to support the students wherever we can, and sometimes the student is just not able to manage themselves in a way that would conform to the normal behaviour system, and we have to make a judgment on sort of the needs of the child, and obviously the sort of safety of the staff and the other students in the school. So when we're looking at the behaviour policy, we do look very carefully at the students' needs and what things are outside their control, in which case we have to make some kind of adjustment in terms of the behaviour system, and which things are not, in which case the behaviour system is employed in full. But in terms of additional support, we do seek additional professional advice wherever we need to. So we're very lucky that we buy the services of an educational psychologist who works with many of our students and provides additional guidance for us and provides additional training for teachers and for our team. We work with the local SENS team, so the Special Educational Needs Support Service, who will undertake assessments, dyslexia assessments, for example, dyscalculia assessments, and again they will provide additional support for us so that we can support our students more effectively. Other organisations that we work with are the Hearing Impaired Service, CAMS. There are many organisations that we work with, and when we need to obtain additional support, we will do that. And sometimes the medical service is a port of call for us. We've had some students with quite complex medical conditions, and obviously needed some advice from the medical professionals as well. So yes, we use a lot of professional advice. And you asked also about parents being involved, and for me that's a very important aspect of my job, because the parents are with the child, they see the child in different contexts from us. It's very important that we have a full and honest conversation about the student's needs, what's happening at school, what's happening at home, so that we can effectively plan together and make sure that there's consistency for the student, so that we're all following the same kind of strategies, and this will help reinforce for the students how to respond in certain situations, because they know that our responses will be the same either at home or at school. Parents also have ambitions for their students, for their children, and it's really important to respond to those as well, because it is a three-way partnership: the student, the school, and the parents, and a very important three-way partnership.
And finally, because I know how busy you are, what is the hiring process here, and how do you make sure that the school hire the most specialist people, I suppose, because I did an interview with a man who used to run an inclusion unit from my episode 2, and he used the term that you wouldn't hire someone as a mechanic who couldn't fix your car, so you shouldn't necessarily hire people that don't have an understanding of how SEN and other things like that work. So I just wondered how the process goes here.
Yes, it's an interesting one because we have hired professionals in the last few years, and one of the things that we've done consciously is to make sure that we recruit at such a level that we are going to recruit people with specialist skills. And when we advertise, we identify the skills that we're looking for and the experience that we're looking for, because you are quite right. You do need specialist staff with specialist skills and knowledge if they're going to work with the young person effectively. And if you don't have that, the time in itself is not sufficient. You actually need the people with the skills to do that. So we consciously look for people with specific skills, and you're a prime example of that, actually, David, that we were looking for someone with exactly your skills, but we offered a higher grade in order to obtain you and other people who were working in our team, because we felt that it's worth the money to get the specialist workers, and it certainly has been worth the money.
Oh, thank you. Well, I won't take up more of your time. I think I'm really thankful that you agreed to do this, because lots of parents, as I said before we started recording, get in contact with me, and they have questions about how certain schools may be not offering the things that they would like, or they feel like the communication is broken down. And I wanted to highlight such a good point that I feel that the SEN team as a whole, we communicate really effectively with parents. We communicate on the day with things if we need to, way in advance with social stories and things like that. And I think that the team is so strong that we cater for so many needs, even though our feet might not touch the ground some days. But I think it's such a strong team that I just wanted to show the positive work that we all do. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome. I'm sorry it's been such a brief time, but I hope I've given a flavour and an overview of the kind of things that we do.
I know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hello. So back home now after busy day of work. I have interviewed Nick and Zoe from Inclusion, as well as Brian, the SENCO at the Sir John Colfox Academy. As you could tell, Nick and Zoe were a little bit nervous to start with when interviewing, but as soon as we got into the swing of it, they were very forthcoming with their answers, as well as Brian. I haven't done really that much of an introduction to this episode, so I'm just going to do a little bit now, even though we're the 30-odd minute mark, where basically World Autism Awareness Week at the Sir John Colfox Academy, I actually am employed by the school, and they've given me the excellent job, I suppose, to promote it along with the SEN team. And due to this being my passion project, I really thought it'd be a good idea just to show you guys the inner workings of a school and the excellent work that is done in a school every single day. So if we backtrack to the interview with Nick and Zoe, talking about how inclusive the SEN room is, the inclusion room is, and talking about certain things like it used to be used as an internal isolation room, which is when they did the commas in their by their actions. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I need to get a grip. Said about the naughty boy room, which is basically what they meant was that it was the internal isolation room, and that's all it was used for. So when Nick and Zoe took it over 3 years ago, they made a big push to make it inclusive for everybody in the school, and that they wanted to be able to meet the needs of every single person that went through the doors, and that was by creating a nice, calm environment, very welcoming environment. And as they said, word of mouth gets round, and so many people, so many students now use that room. I myself, in my role, I use that room as a way for my students to get some peer-on-peer social interaction, which they wouldn't necessarily get in the SEN room, because it's more, as I said in the interview with Brian, it's more of an educational sort of room. So we focus on the educational, and then myself, in my role, I do more one-to-one work, more nurturing work that similar to what inclusion do, but on a smaller scale. And then the conversation with Brian, which I just thought was superb, and my thanks to Brian for giving me that time. Considering he's a SENCO and assistant head, he is so busy, and to give me that 15 minutes that he did give me, talking about all the things from EHCP, all the things that the school offers and why they offer it, I think it'd be really interesting for, in particular, parents and educational professionals that are listening to this, that are thinking, is that something we could adopt at my school, or why do they do that, and is there a reason behind that? And I just think it opens up a whole new discussion category for ways in which schools can meet the needs of certain students. As I said in the interview, it is my 4th school I've worked at. I'm only 28 years old, so it is a little bit of a high turnover, but the reason for that is that I've always worked in SEN. Without giving you the boring details, is when I feel a school isn't as inclusive as they can be, I am a little bit outspoken, and if that sometimes doesn't go down well, and that is purely me with my every child matters mindset, and just trying to be so flexible and meeting the needs of those students. And at the John Colfox Academy, they do that every single day. So by, as Brian said, by being flexible with the behaviour policy, because you can't expect students with SEND to be able to follow the same guidelines as other students. You can put them out there, and then if something goes wrong, as we said, you have that discussion with the student, have a understanding on why that is not the right thing to do within school, and see how that conversation goes, rather than just giving detentions and internal isolations and exclusions. Colfox and myself, we don't believe that is the best way forward as students and young adults to be able to learn, and I think that they've got it spot on. I'll just discuss a little bit now before we get to my interview with James, or Jim as he likes to be known, an autistic student at school. He is in year 8, and even though I haven't recorded it yet, I know it'll be an absolutely superb interview. I know Jim very well, and we have lots of discussions. I support him in class, and sometimes do mini one-to-one sessions with him on restorative justice and things like that, and it will be a really positive one for you to hear. So my role at the Sir John Colfox Academy is an autism specialist. So in my role, which Brian was very complimentary of me before, which I really do thank him for, I will think I might have to buy him a present or something to say thank you for how complimentary he was. But essentially, I've been hired to meet the needs of students on the autistic spectrum whose provision in the last place they've been hasn't necessarily been a positive one. So my role is to build the curriculum around their needs. So some people are on collapsed timetables or flexible timetables, coming at different times of the day. We build the timetable and the curriculum around their interests. For one student in particular, that is the creative subjects, arts, music, things like that. And then the subjects that these students may struggle in, they do on a one-to-one basis with me, or a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. That's 3 students to 1 adult. And we slowly integrate them into their lessons. And if something doesn't work, you can always adapt and always change. So if one subject doesn't work, for example, come back out, try a different subject. Also in my job, I do a lot of work around nurturing, around PSE, around how to have strategies for certain things in schools, like if there's changes or anxiety, because I've got some students at work who have PDA, not obviously diagnosed as PDA in Dorset, as I've mentioned on my Twitter feed. If you've been following me since the beginning, do not recognise PDA. Some of local authorities do, like Somerset, for example, where I previously worked, they do recognise PDA. So we had a lot of funding from County PDA Society come down and did some superb discussions and staff training and things like that. And I've been able to take that over into my new role in Dorset, which is superb. So they're the sort of things that I do daily. I do a lot of one-to-one. I go into class and support these students as well. And then when it's time, I retreat. And I think that's important as well, that at some point these students are going to have to do it on their own. And I think that it gets to a point when you're working so intensively with students that they don't want you to be around every minute of every day. And I think it's very important to listen to the student in that respect, and obviously have that discussion and make sure that it's the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, the student is at the centre of this, and I think that their viewpoint has to be taken into account as well as parents, as Brian said brilliantly before about the three-way communication between school, pupil and home, and that link has just got to be so strong. And then obviously it is about, in my eyes, building a team around that student, around these children, so that they don't just get all their information from one person. Because even though I've been hired as an autism specialist, and Brian spoke very, very highly of me before, I want to have all the answers to everything. And just by personality side and by just how I am as a person, I will not be able to meet the needs of that student in every single aspect of schooling. I can try, but I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to try and fix every single thing in school. That's why you build a team around the young person. So then if that young person needs a break from a certain adult, or a certain adult isn't in, it isn't really a big deal, because you can just adapt and carry on. If everything falls on the shoulders of one person and that person isn't in, then I can imagine that, well, I've actually seen it in my old schools where it isn't a very nice day, when that one person isn't in. So I think that it's so important to have a team around the child. I have been rambling on a little bit now. I will stop. I just wanted to let you know the sort of things that I do within my role. Just a real brief overview of the things I do. There are so many things that all of all the parents and education professionals out there that go above and beyond every single day. And that's about highlighting it in this podcast, that, Nick and Zoe, they're out full on all day, every day. And they really are unsung heroes at school. So I just wanted to make sure that they were highlighted in this podcast for the excellent work that they do. And Brian, as well as SENCO, he is so easy to have discussions with. He will always ask questions back on when you feel a certain way, and if he feels it's the right thing to do, he will back you and backs me 100%, which is just a lovely place to be working in. And before I finish and move on to our interview with Jim, I will say that the Sir John Colfox Academy meets the needs of so many students in so many different ways, as Brian and Zoe and Nick said. And I think that it is the school's responsibility to make sure that every student is being catered for in the best way possible. And I do think that they are doing that. And even though it's very difficult to meet the needs of every single student, they do try. And I think that goes a long way, because, a lot of you have got in contact with me on Twitter, on via email or direct message, and you've said to me that actually, you feel like the school for your child or education provision for your child are not doing as much as they can do. And what I will say is that if you feel that they're not doing enough, look into the HCP, see if they're meeting the needs, look into evidence in it, and just see what you can do. Because at the end of the day, you're the ones that, the parents, for example, are having to have these discussions with school, and it only works if everyone's on the same page. So, yeah, I just wanted to highlight the excellent work that school do. I just want to thank David Herbert, just quickly, who is the head teacher, for allowing me to do this podcast this week. And the next voices you'll hear will be myself and Jim's, and I know it'll be an excellent discussion that you will enjoy. So, enjoy. Okay, so we are back at the John Colfox Academy. We're on the next day. We're Thursday the 29th today. So I interviewed Nick and Zoe and Brian yesterday, which I hope those chats you found really interesting. Also, I did a little bit of a discussion before hand, which you've just listened to, which was a little bit all over the place because my daughter was crying and I was trying to finish up really quickly, so I lost my train of thought a little bit. But today, as promised, we've got a very special guest who is a Year 8 student. I work a lot with this student, and we get on really well. So I'm going to introduce James or Jim. What would you prefer to be called, James or Jim? Jim. Okay, so Jim, thank you for agreeing to do this. I know that you've been a little bit nervous, maybe you've been coming down and seeing me a little bit, but we can just relax, and if we need to stop at any time, just say, and we can just stop. Okay, so I've got 6 questions, only 6 questions, and then we'll finish. So the first question is, where are the places you feel safe at Colfox?
The places that I feel safe and most like at Colfox are number 1, inclusion, because Miss Carey and Mr. Preston run it, and it's a very nice place. And they help you whenever there's an incident goes on, and they're very nice. And then also SEN is another good place, which I have an exit card if ever I need to use it in lesson for SEN, and that's another good place to go to. And they help if you need help with your work as well.
Brilliant. So you really like inclusion?
Yeah.
Do you feel safe in inclusion?
Yeah, I do feel safe here because Miss Carey and Miss Preston do a really good job of keeping it a nice atmosphere and keeping people under control here.
I think they'll be very pleased to hear that, because yesterday when I spoke to Miss Carey and Mr. Preston, they said exactly what you've just said. That they wanted to make it a very nice atmosphere and make it so anybody can come up. Do you think it's a good idea that anybody can come up?
Yeah, and I think it is a good atmosphere for anyone.
It is, and also they do give out some food and drinks and hot chocolates from time to time as well.
They're very kind.
They are very kind.
Yeah.
So you've kind of answered this in the first question, but who are the adults you feel you can go to and see when you need help?
Miss Preston, Miss Carey, Mr. Rigby, who works here, works in inclusion sometimes, and you, sir.
Okay, and why do you feel those adults will help?
Because they're really nice and calm about it, and that's their job, to help sort of solve problems like that. And they are very nice if you come in all in a strop and in a situation. They're very nice about it, so yeah.
That's good. I think that's one of the things that if sometimes people get in a little bit of a strop, like you said, that when you go to SEN or inclusion, you're allowed to be in a strop, aren't you, for a little bit?
Yeah.
And then the adults will help you, they'll listen.
Calm down.
And then do the adults fix it?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah? And if they can't fix it straight away, do they try and fix it later on?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so the next question, this might be a bit of a difficult one, but I have told you in advance the questions, so you might be able to answer it, you might not, and it's okay if you can't. What are the situations at Colfox that you find difficult?
The situations I feel difficult at Colfox are assessments, but the good thing is now sometimes I come to inclusion for my assessments.
So you're not in a big hall, you're just doing it in a...
And another one is cover lessons.
Oh, okay.
Because everyone's all over the place and just shouting and throwing insults at you and all that, and it's just mad, so I just come out usually.
So when there's a cover lesson, is it that sometimes people can act slightly differently than what they do if they had their normal teacher?
Yeah.
And do you find that difficult?
Yeah.
Is it because of the change or the noise, or is it something else, or is it all of those things?
All of those things, plus as well people just insult me a lot more and all that.
So do you think that it raises your anxiety a little bit when there's a cover lesson?
So I'm liable to get angry and hit out more often.
Well, I don't think you hit out. I think what happens is that sometimes you get frustrated and you do a clenched fist, don't you? Go, oh, and it's just all your frustration coming out. But what do you have to help you in those lessons where you get quite cross? What can you use?
My exit card for SEN or inclusion.
And that gives you the chance to leave that room, and then you can go to a place where you feel safe, and then you can come in and you can say, this is happening, I'm quite annoyed at this. And then what will inclusion or SEN do for you?
Calm me down, resolve the situation so that I can either go back or just I get the work and do it in either inclusion or SEN.
And do you think that works?
Yeah, I get a lot more done as well.
Yeah, well, sometimes if the class is a little bit more bouncy, shall we say, then it's difficult to be in the class, isn't it?
Yeah.
And at Colfox, do they understand that sometimes you can't be in the class the whole time?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Another situation I find hard is sometimes social situations with
other students?
Yeah, especially some certain students that I don't really get on with.
Do you think that's just a personality clash?
Kind of, but equally there's certain students just like to lob insults at me all the time and never stop, so whatever. So it really annoys me.
So when that happens, do you sometimes react as well and say unkind things back? Yeah.
Either say unkind things back or hit them.
Well, I'm going to say, because I know you very well, I don't think you hit at all. I think it's that when we get frustrated, we clench our fists together, don't we? And then what happens is...
And swear.
Yeah. And I think, do you think that is... Because we do zones of regulation a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
Do we think that's you in the red zone where you're angry and you're out of control
Red
and you're
zone,
yelling?
Yeah.
Or do you feel it's more yellow where you're frustrated and just a little bit anxious?
Yellow/red.
Okay.
But yesterday I was in the red.
Were you?
In history, remember?
Yeah, but what day was it yesterday?
My birthday, and
Your
everybody just
birthday.
insulted me on purpose, so...
Well, when it was your birthday yesterday, you were a little bit wobbly, weren't you, all day?
Yeah, because I
Just a
didn't
little bit.
want people to keep insulting me because of my birthday.
Well, again, I think it's one of those situations where sometimes it's a bit of a circle, isn't it? So someone says something, you say something back, someone says something again, and then all of a sudden we just get cross, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll come back to that in a minute, James, because I want to get through some more questions, but I will get back to that. So, do adults know that you find these situations difficult? And if they do know, well, how do they support you? If they don't know, how could we support you?
Some adults do, such as inclusion staff and youth, but not all my teachers know about it.
Are there some teachers, like I'm going to
some
just...
teachers such as music, drama, PE.
Well, one of the lessons I'm in, which I know that hasn't gone well for you in the past but is going better now, is English. And I think that Miss Ward in particular...
It's amazing now.
Yeah, it is amazing. And Miss Ward gives you little strategies and me and her work together,
so, but that's one of the teachers that does understand, but not all the teachers do. My drama teacher certainly doesn't, nor does my music teacher.
Do you think
nor does my PE teacher.
Shall I turn that on its head though?
No.
Do you like those lessons?
No, nor do I like the teachers. Well, Mr. Hawkins alright, but the others aren't as good.
Do you think that because you don't like those lessons you go in a little bit anxious anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what is the good news with those lessons? So when we get to September, do you have to do those lessons anymore?
No, because I took options.
Excellent. What options did you take?
Geography, DT resistant materials, food prep and RA.
Amazing. And they're all lessons you like, aren't they? So we've only got a few more months and then you don't have to do those lessons again if you don't want to. This one is a big one because I wanted to put this question in because we have lots of good discussions about it. Fireworks. Oh, we'll talk about fireworks in a minute. They're your favourite, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you are very aware of autism.
Yeah.
And we have chats quite often about autism.
Yeah.
If you could explain autism to someone, what would you say?
I would say it's something that some people are born with and others aren't. That means it depends how you have it. So some people have it quite bad, such as like I know someone that has it really bad, and he can't even go to school sometimes. It's so bad because. But I think I would define autism as something that you're born with, that sometimes it can either make you find doing work hard and pressure, such as tests and things, very hard, but equally some autistic people are more intelligent than average, so yeah, but main thing is social interaction that autistic people would struggle with, I'd say.
I think that's a very good definition, and I'm really pleased that I got that for the podcast, because I know that it's very important to get someone's point of view who is autistic, and I think that you summed it up very beautifully there. I think that's a very good definition. My last question before we talk about your favourite thing in the world, which is fireworks, is lastly, if there are things, can you name some things you like about Colfox first? Inclusion, you love inclusion.
SEN, yeah.
SEN.
Geography.
Brilliant. Why do you like geography so much?
Because it's very interesting about the environment, and it's taught by one of my favourites, Mr. Preston.
Perfect. And also, I cut you off, carry on.
And also, I was going to say English is quite good because I like the teacher, and we only have a small group, so it's quite a good lesson, to be honest.
Because English has changed recently, hasn't it? Because it used to be taught in bigger groups and you did some lessons in SEN and some lessons
not. That used to be a bit silly.
Yeah. And
it was just too easy, really.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think that once we looked through the books and we listened to the students after a few months, we realised it was a bit too easy, and we've changed it now. We have a small group of about 8 or 9, and it works a lot better, doesn't it? What about the things that you would like to change? So it doesn't have to be about certain teachers or certain lessons.
I would like to sack.
No, well, what I'm going to say is not about certain teachers, because no one gets along with every teacher. I'm thinking more of how big the school is. So if you could, would you make it smaller with less people? Or do you like it being as big as it is?
I like it rainbow.
What about transition times in the corridors? Do you find that a bit tricky?
Yeah, personally, I would make the corridors wider.
Good one.
And I would also try and make a thing so that teachers have to get the classes in on time, because otherwise they end up loads of lines just being a mad rebel outside the class.
And that's a good point. So if you are in the classroom and people are coming in late, is that a bit distracting for you?
Yeah, but also the fact of everyone's lining up and we're standing there for 5 or 10 minutes, it's a boredom thing, and people end up starting to insult you again.
Oh, okay. So you think that people need to be kept busy, and classes need to...
Yeah, especially other people that are autistic.
And you think that would help those people?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, James, I've got through all my questions. The last thing I'm going to speak to you about is fireworks.
Kaboom!
Now, fireworks are your most favourite thing in the world?
Yeah.
So, Jim, sorry, you asked me to call you Jim. Jim lives on a big patch of farmland, don't you?
Yeah.
And what you do is, in the holidays and special occasions like your birthdays and New Year's and things like that, have you got a fidget spinner? Go on, spin it to the camera, the microphone. So, with fireworks, what do you love the most about fireworks?
The loud bangs.
Yeah.
And the adrenaline you get from lighting them.
Do you feel it go through your body? So the boom.
Yeah.
And how much have you spent on fireworks this year? So between January and today, which is March the 29th, how much do you think you spent?
£200.
Amazing. And when are you going to set them all off? Because it was your birthday yesterday.
I'm setting them all off on Saturday. We're having a massive party, so we're going to have a barbecue.
Yeah.
And some music, and we're getting some friends down.
Oh, you told me you were seeing people from London,
and
aren't you?
They might bring some more fireworks down.
So how long do you think the fireworks will go on for?
10-15 minutes.
Amazing. Well, James, I am very thankful that you've come down and spoken to me.
No, I need to speak about something else.
Is it because you have one of the lessons that you get a little bit anxious in?
No, it's not that. It's the fact that I want to say that sometimes I get very angry over people winding me up, and I think the inclusion in SEN helps that.
We've put little things in place for you, haven't we? So what do you do if you feel a little bit anxious?
Read a good book that I know called Coraline.
That's a good book.
It's a really good book I've been reading recently in English to help me calm down, but also use exit card if needed.
And also you have me in there.
Yeah.
And Miss Ward, and if something isn't going right, we just give you a little tap on the shoulder,
another
don't we?
point I want to say is sometimes, because when everyone's been a bit silly and shouting like comments, like words that are considered cool at school but necessarily could get you in trouble, like everybody seems to be a bit like everyone's doing it. And I feel that I need to join in, but it's hard because I don't want to get in trouble. But then they'll be like, "Oh, why are you not joining in, different weirdo?"
So what you're doing is that you're wanting to fit in.
Yeah.
So you're saying the words, and when you say those words, how does it make you feel?
Makes me feel cool, but equally I feel bad because I'm not being the teacher and I'm being kind of making it hard to the teacher to teach the lesson.
Well, it's good that you can see from both ends, but at the same time, I know that you get a little bit excited when you say those words. And you get a little bit giggly, don't you?
Well, what?
And I think it's because you find those words a little bit funny, because when the other boys and girls say them, you think, oh, that sounds quite funny, I think I'd like to say that.
Yeah.
And that's fine because you are a teenager, but after all.
Yeah.
So I would say, James, that you are a very good student at school. You do lots of excellent work, especially in geography. I know Mr. Preston's very proud of you because you're doing extra work, aren't you? Because you enjoy it so much. You are very caring, you're a very kind person, and you're very articulate as well, which means that you use your words very, very well, probably better than I do. And I just want to say thank you very much for letting me share your wisdom on my podcast. I will give you a special screening of it soon so that you can hear it before it goes out. Would you like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so thank you, Jim.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Jim.